This edition of MacVoices is supported by Screencasts Online, your source for new Mac and iOS tutorials every week. To learn more, and for a 14-day free trial, visit screencastsonline.com. And by MacVoices Magazine, our free Flipboard magazine that brings you some of the best Mac, iPhone, and iPad productivity tips on the web. High in signal, low in noise, just like MacVoices, MacVoices Magazine includes information on how you can get more out of your Apple technology. Subscribe at macvoices.com/magazine or search for MacVoices Magazine on Flipboard. Welcome to the MacJury on MacVoices. This is a talk of the Apple community. I'm Chuck Joyner, and I am going to have a great time tonight, and I hope you will too, because we're going to talk about Apple Music, all the music services, with three terrific panelists who have strong opinions, I think, otherwise they wouldn't be here. Why would I invite them? See who's using what, where we are, and where we're going. So with that, let's just get right to it. And I'm going to work from left to right on my screen, so I guess that's roughly alphabetical. First up, Mr. Jeff Gamet. Jeff, welcome. It's great to have you.
It's always awesome to be here. And what an amazing panel. This is pretty cool.
Yeah, this really is. This really is. Anything you want to plug before we get going?
Oh, sure. How about Mac Observer? Because that would be macobserver.com. And how about Fresh Brewed Tales? Because I wrote a new thing about stupid things people do at coffee shops a couple days ago. FreshBrewedTales.com.
Great. It's great to have you as always. Next up, Ms. Kelly Guimont. Kelly, it's great to have you back. It's been a little while, which translates into too long. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you think so, because I think so, and so I'm glad to know that you agree. Because we'll totally disagree later. Spoiler alert. We'll probably disagree about something on the show. Yeah.
So where are you hanging out these days?
Mostly I am hanging out with the App Camp for Girls contingent over at appcampforgirls.com. And we're always looking to expand, and we're about to we're actually in conjunction with James Dempsey and the Breakpoints having a party at WWDC, and tickets are just about to go on sale for that, so it's going to be very exciting. And we're always looking to build another camp in another city to teach 8th and 9th grade girls about how to develop for iOS. And mostly what we're doing is showing them what sorts of jobs are available in software, because not everybody, particularly going into 8th and 9th grade, has a really clear idea that, drawing everything that goes into an app is a job all on its own, or breaking it is a job all on its own. And so giving an opportunity to see all the different facets of app development is really great so far. And we're trying to make more women developers and send them out into the world, because everybody who decided to start this program was really tired of being the only girl. So we're trying to fix it.
Great. Glad to hear it. Last but absolutely not least, the one, the only, Mr. Ken Ray. Ken, it's great to have you.
Good. Thank you very much for having me, Chuck. I appreciate it. You're going to ask me where I am and what I'm doing?
Well, I know, but they may not, so yes.
I'm anticipating. MacOSCan.com is my website, and I do a daily show called MacOSCan. And then we do a weekend show where we talk about all the Apple news that we talked about during the week, called iChart Radio. That's EYE iChart Radio. Find it on iTunes and subscribe now. And then the next time there is one, it'll just be there. It's like magic. And then I also do a Mission Log, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast, which is all about Star Trek. And there are probably other shows that I'm forgetting.
Yeah, there is one, and I'm going to pick on you a little bit because you don't plug it enough, and it's a fantastic show, and that's Day 6.
Yeah, well, thank you. Okay. Let's move on, shall we?
Thank you. Okay.
No,
it's been Day 6 is. I mean, Day 6 has been it's a premium thing. It has not been as consistent as it should be over the past few months, and so I haven't been promoting it as much, because I don't want to say to people, "Hey, pay me to do this," and then be like, maybe, So it's been kind of a weird thing. It's getting its footing a bit more again, but I haven't really been promoting it as much. I've actually been more promoting the Patreon thing, because just money. That's
Sure. Money's a good thing.
It's an okay thing, yeah. So yes, but Day 6 is that's the one. Okay, so since we're talking about it, the one cool thing about Day 6 is there are over 300 some odd episodes. There are some really amazing interviews, and if you subscribe, you get them all. You have access to all of them. So I can't even think of who right now. Well, Wozniak way back in the day.
Amazing people.
Yeah.
All
Mr.
Jeff Gamet is
Gamet.
there
Yeah.
from time to time.
Well,
Joined, was
mostly
actually here a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Mostly, yes. Mostly Jeff Gamet.
Yeah.
It's the Jeff Gamet show.
Yeah.
And there are other people. So yeah, it's plenty of stuff. It's all available at macoscan.com. You can find out about it there.
Okay.
It actually is a really great show. People should be listening.
Yeah, I feel like it's probably one of the best kept secrets in podcasting. So go.
Well, we're not doing a very good job of keeping it secret, just so you know, Chuck.
Yeah.
I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it not being secret. I'm not always the best person at promoting myself. I actually had somebody write to me recently and say, "Hey, you're not talking about the Patreon thing good enough." He's from Great Britain, so he actually said it much better English than I did. But basically, he's like, "Yeah, you're not promoting it right. Go watch Tom Merritt and then say what he says, except use your name instead of his."
You know what you ought to do is just capture that video of Tom doing that and just voice over his name with yours.
Dub in my name every time.
Yeah. Totally dub in your name.
Well, better
So you can come to MacOScan.com.
Well, better
Exactly.
yet, do the old clutch cargo thing where just you replace the mouth and nothing else.
That's a good idea too.
Yeah.
That would be great.
Well, thanks for having me, Chuck. I got to run.
Yeah.
This has been good.
Oh,
So
man.
Chuck, you know Mike Rose and I do a podcast, right? I want to get a testimonial from you about our show too.
Well, at the end, Kelly. At the end.
Okay.
Okay, so let's just start lay a little base layer here for the discussion. I would like to know what streaming services or what music services, if any, that you currently pay for out of your pocket that you use. Jeff?
I'm paying for Apple Music, and I have Amazon Prime, so technically I'm paying for Amazon Prime streaming music as well. And those are the only two.
Okay, I want to come back to you then for the Amazon streaming music. Kelly?
Okay.
I don't pay for any of them. I get the Prime Music as part of my Prime subscription. So I'm actually not paying for anything. I did the demo of Apple Music, and my demo with Spotify went completely wrong, or I would probably be paying for it. So if I was paying for one, that's what it would be, is the Spotify Premium.
Okay. Ken?
I am paying for Apple Music, and that's the only one that I'm paying for now, though I have been off and on a subscription music subscriber since 2005. So I've paid for Rhapsody a couple of different times. Was on it for a while, was off it, was back on it.
I forgot I had a Rhapsody subscription too.
I did that too many years ago, yes.
And then I paid for Spotify for a few years, right up until Apple Music launched. But then, yeah, I've switched over to Apple Music now. So I only pay for one at a time. Right. And I guess we have Amazon Prime, so I guess I could have that, but I haven't even looked into it.
Well, and I'll go back to Kelly and Jeff because I've wanted to look into Amazon Prime Music and I've just never gotten there. But with what comes with your regular Amazon Prime account, is that the one where you can upload everything, or are you just getting whatever they have available?
I've never found it to be compelling enough to see what all I can do with it. I use Amazon Prime streaming music, or just the streaming music part, occasionally. They have some nice playlists for specific music types, which is kind of cool, and it's actually something that if I'm going to listen to, it's because for whatever reason I've switched to my television from my Apple TV input to the Amazon Fire Stick input, and so I just play music from there. Okay.
Because I think there's another level of Amazon Prime Music. I could. Okay, Kelly's saying yes.
There totally is. So the other thing that's cool about Amazon Prime is if you are overcome with a need, an overwhelming desire to upload all your music to Amazon Cloud within Amazon Prime, you totally can. I don't, however. If you buy music from Amazon Prime, and here's the thing that I think they're doing that is pretty exciting at my house, because at my house we kick it old school, yo. We buy records, like actual plastic discs with music upon them. People may remember
vinyl
these.
with grooves and everything.
No, not vinyl. It's CDs.
CDs.
But I
Okay.
still call them records because, again, old school. So yeah, it's like the little ones. There's a whole bunch of them. If I opened that closet behind me, you would see a bunch of discs. It's all DVDs and CDs in there, and then all the AV equipment because the TV's right on the other side of the wall. So I cut a hole in the closet and ran all the cables through it, and so all the
like
AV
Narnia.
stuff lives in there. It's really awesome. Anyway, so if you buy a CD from Amazon Prime, and you have Amazon Prime, they have this service called Auto Rip. And so immediately, as soon as you buy it, the MP3s are available to you in the cloud. And so wherever you have Amazon Prime streaming music, you can listen to that CD right away. Even if you have Prime and paid for overnight and you're not going to get the CD until tomorrow, you get the tracks right now. So
That's
I
like
buy
the
a
old
lot of music
MP3
from Amazon.
That's like the old MP3 locker thing, right?
Yeah,
That
it
somebody
totally
got
is.
sued out of existence for.
Yeah.
Like you could just prove that you had the CD, and then it would store all of your stuff in the cloud before we were,
Mhm.
trendy enough to call it the cloud. It was before, it was like 2000, right?
Something like that. Yeah, because
Yeah.
it was while I was
99,
working
2000.
for the digital music company, and that was 2000. So that's one thing that I really like about it is that all of the stuff I buy from Amazon, and that includes Amazon MP3s, because I do occasionally buy an MP3 or two from Amazon for portability's sake, because I did a lot more of that before MP3s were super common on iTunes. So I tended, if I was going to buy music in digital form, I tended to buy it from Amazon because I knew I was just getting a plain old MP3 file that I could do whatever I want with it. And so I have a whole stack of stuff that's in Amazon, in the Amazon Cloud Player, that I can play automatically. And the bonus to it is that Mr. Kelly bought an Echo. And so you can tell the Echo to play music, and it will play from Amazon, and it will also play Pandora. So, and I don't know if he's paying for Pandora right now or not. Every once in a while, I'll go, like for a gift giving event, I'll go buy him a year of Pandora so he doesn't have to listen to commercials. Because we have unlimited data, so he will listen to that like on his commute. He'll just stream Pandora instead of listening to the local radio. And so that's the music situation at my house. But I think the auto rip thing is really cool that Amazon does. And they do have, like Jeff was saying, some good curated playlists. The thing that I think they and Spotify both really do a good job with is those curated lists. And the thing I like about Spotify is that they are publicly available. I don't know how to share. Like if I build a really awesome playlist on Amazon Music, I don't know how to share it with anybody. And on Spotify, I do know how.
Can I ask why you buy CDs?
Mostly it's habit, and we buy a lot less of them than we used to. It's really specific now, and it's basically like 3 to 4 specific bands that Mr. Kelly just wants to have the actual discs for. Otherwise, I buy a lot of stuff on iTunes or on Amazon Music pretty commonly. Like if I want something, that's usually where I will go first, unless it's unless it's a band that I don't want to name so that I don't get made fun of later. If it's one of those bands, then I will totally buy an actual plastic disc. But for the most part, no. It's just a matter of buying them. But the other nice thing about that is that with a disc, it doesn't matter what the DRM situation is. Like if I bought it with my iTunes account, or if Mr. Kelly bought it with his iTunes account, it doesn't matter because we can both listen to it.
Right.
So, and I would say the primary audio setup at my house is we have the Apple TV hooked into the receiver out to the B&W speakers. And so lots of things either happen through the Apple TV or over AirPlay to the Apple TV out to the big speakers.
Can I sometimes buy CDs still? Although most of my music that I do purchase, I'm purchasing straight from iTunes, unless there's like some cool deal for Amazon MP3s. When I buy CDs, I'm buying it for discovery. And what I do, I know, I see the look on your face, and I totally get it. What I do is I go to the thrift store, and I look and see what albums are just there at the thrift store. And I just look for something that seems interesting. And so I'll buy a bunch of, I'll buy like 10 albums, and it costs me $7. And I take them home, I listen to them, and if I really like them, great. And if
You go buy the
albums
rest of their albums on iTunes.
Yeah, I can buy the rest of their stuff on iTunes. But if I buy some albums and I don't like them, whatever, I take them back to the thrift store, and someone else can buy them. And I get a little bit of credit that I can use to buy another album for $1 or whatever. So CDs for me, as crazy as it sounds, has become a music discovery system.
What was the last great thing that you discovered that way?
It was this. I can't remember his name. He's this blues singer, like Deep South, and he only has a couple albums. I'll have to go look it up, and I'll let you know. But I bought the album because it was just this rickety old guy in a black and white photo sitting on what looks like a porch out of Deliverance, and there's just something about the album cover. It's like, I'm totally picking this up, and it turns out that he was a really good blues singer.
We've used CD stores, and I do that too sometimes. I'll go on a hot streak and buy a bunch of things there, and just take a bunch of plastic home and figure out what I've got.
Ken, do you buy CDs?
No. I can't think of the last time I bought it. No, I can't actually think of the last time I bought a CD was 2006. I bought not Pretty
Britney
Hate
Spears'
Machine.
Greatest Hits.
Pretty Hate Machine. I bought Pretty Hate Machine. It was before 9 Inch Nails was available on any streaming service. Well, yeah, it was before 9 Inch Nails was available on any streaming service. I don't even think they were available yet on iTunes. And I had lost my copy of Pretty Hate Machine. I still have my copy of Downward Spiral, so I didn't have to buy that. And I ordered it from Amazon, and it came to the house a couple of days later. And I think that is the last time I bought a CD. But I'm allergic to physical media at this point. I haven't bought a DVD. I want to say the last DVD I bought was maybe 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, and it was Tombstone because I found it for $4. $4 or $5.
Yeah.
And still, I think I've watched it once since then because I forget that I can even watch DVDs anymore. I mean, I'm such a streaming media fan, and I know that leaves me locked out of a lot of stuff. Although now that iTunes is getting so deep in its movies, I can just buy something if I can't stream it someplace. I don't. Physical CDs just kind of they irk me now, and DVDs as well.
No,
There's something about them that's annoying, and I don't know. I mean, it's weird. I mean, I like your music discovery idea, but I mean, it's with the whole 21st century thing. There's one song. So I'm watching CBSN critically. I mean, I'm also watching it a lot because I don't have cable back in my studio. But I think since since 2001 probably. I need to know that I have access to news, even if there's nothing happening. And it's not really news, but most of the news isn't really news, so who cares? There's a song that's playing on a commercial on CBSN constantly now, and I'm getting really frustrated with Shazam because I'm so used to saying, hey, what's the song? And most of my music discovery happens out in the world. If I'm someplace and I hear a song, I pick up my iPhone and say, hey, what's this? Mm-hmm. And it tells me. And there's this commercial that's playing right now for a CBS show, and it keeps misidentifying the song. Now, to Siri's credit, or Shazam's credit, it's trying different songs each time. But it still hasn't gotten
now
the
I
right
just want to know what the commercial is so I can go listen to it and see if I know what it is.
Yeah.
It is
I'm a sucker
it is
for
a
Name That
commercial for it's one of the 3 commercials that they're playing for Rush Hour, the TV series. And the song plays in 5-second increments on this 25 to 30 second, clip. So good luck to you. And if you figure it out, let me know because there's something amazing about this. It's the fastest rap I've ever heard.
Yeah. Or try SoundHound.
So, okay. I could try SoundHound. The other problem though is so I don't know when the commercial's going to play. So all of a sudden it's like, oh, and by the time you get your phone out, commercial's half over.
Yeah.
Wah.
Okay, so under the heading of full disclosure, right now I'm paying for Apple Music. But the one thing that I haven't heard anybody that does buy CDs for whatever reason is that I don't hear you saying you're ripping them for quality purposes, for lossless purposes. And that surprises me just a little bit because that to me is, outside of maybe supporting the band, that's really the only reason to buy a CD anymore. Assuming,
Can we
of
come
course,
back to supporting the band though?
I'm sorry?
I want you to stay with your point about quality, but I want to come back to the whole supporting the band idea.
Absolutely.
with the purchases. But go ahead. I apologize.
No. I mean, that's kind of the only reason that I buy CDs. That, or of course, if I'm at a show and that's the only place you can get them. For lesser known bands. But I've taken all my old CDs and I've ripped them into lossless format, or Apple lossless, so I've got the best quality. But other than that, I'm kind of like Ken. I'm allergic to the physical stuff because, God, it seems to take up so much space.
The intake at my house is a lot less. I will say that.
Yeah, I don't buy physical very often, but sometimes it's the most economical way to get something. And I mean, perfect example. Just today, my copy of the DVD box set of the complete 1966 Batman series showed up. And the only way to really get that is to buy physical media.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had been holding off for a long time, and Amazon dropped the price from $120 down to $47, and I was like,
it's time.
Yeah.
And for me, part of that is I've been a Netflix subscriber for a really long time, and I've seen stuff come and go. And so that's one of the things that makes me buy a CD, physical media, is if I want to listen to it all the time. If I want to make sure that I always have that whatever it is. And like, particularly, I don't know how many other places have just used CD shops, but we have a few of them here in Portland. And I can go there and I can find the random import version of something with a bonus track that's never going to show up on any streaming service. I'm never going to be able to buy that MP3 on iTunes or on Amazon or on anything else. And the CD itself, if I go buy it from Amazon, is from a foreign seller and it's like $50. And here it is for $8 at Everyday Music. And yeah, I'm going to snap that up. And then I have that all the time. And so for me, a lot of where it comes from is just the knee-jerk reaction. Because like I said, I worked at a digital music company. I worked for a company that was trying to help be the DRM middleman in 2000. Which you may remember as the peak of Napster. And the reason I remember it as the peak of Napster is because we all had 19-inch CRT monitors, which were the finest monitors money could buy in 2000. And all anybody had open on them at the place I worked for that was trying to help people monetize digital music was Napster. So...
Oh, delicious irony.
Right? Every department had like the CD burner that they were using to test the DRM. And really all we were doing was sharing MP3s across and being able to, going home with like 5 new albums in MP3 on a disc every night because I could go pick it up off everyone else's hard drives at work. So, that wasn't really, for me, having watched all of that happen and going through all of the iterations of that. And like I signed up for eMusic the minute that was an available thing. And like Rhapsody, Ken, you were talking about, I've sampled a bunch of these and then they go away and then you're stuck. So I had all these songs that I loved on eMusic, and they had these really great essential mixes by these DJs that were doing super awesome stuff. And I couldn't listen to them anymore as soon as eMusic shut their doors. And so for me, it's partly I guess it would be the Gollum reaction. It's mine. It's my precious. And now I know nobody can ever take it away from me as long as I have it on plastic in the closet. And so a lot less of that happens because I have a little bit more faith, I guess, in the longevity of Apple and as a company and iTunes as a service. So I'm pretty sure if I go buy the 1975 off iTunes, I'm going to be able to listen to it a year from now. And I know how to scoop it out if I really want to. But for some stuff, I don't know that there's necessarily a better way. And another thing that I think causes... Go ahead, Ken.
I was going to say, it's actually more like what Jeff was talking about. I'm having that problem now with Max Headroom 20 minutes into the future. I told Amazon, it's available. And when it finally became available on DVD, I was already off DVDs and on the streaming. And so now I don't know who I have to call and say, make the stream for me. I'll pay for it. And that's the thing. I'll totally pay for it. And they're not even asking that much money for it right now, but I just don't want another flipping DVD around the house. And I don't know what that is because there's so much crap in my studio, but DVDs and CDs, I'm like, no, here's where that line is for some reason.
I do like the artist support angle though that you were mentioning earlier, both Ken and Chuck, because I've done that. Like I crowdfunded, signed up to Kickstart like 3 or 4 different CDs by a few different artists, and it was a really easy way to get it. And like one of the things they offered as like the tiers of perks was like for $10 you can get the MP3 of the album, and for $15 I will send you a copy that I autographed. And I'm a sucker for that. So if I like you and you have a record out and you will send me an autographed copy, if I pay you extra money, I will totally pay you the extra money. So I've done that like a
Cheese album.
Yes, that's
I already had all the songs, and yet I did it. And,
right?
But the thing is, he got a lot more money for the album by me paying him for it.
Yep.
Than by getting it through iTunes or Amazon.
So I got the CDs and I was all excited. And then a couple of days later in my email was like, hi, here's the digital version of those CDs that I just sent you. But I have these beautiful autographed CDs that I love that are a special thing to me. And I didn't have to rip them because I already have the digital version sitting on my computer because they emailed it to me. So. Okay,
guys, there's so many things here and I don't want to lose them all because, Ken, I want to go back to the supporting the bands part because I think that's important. And Kelly and Jeff are both just touching on that. And you had something you wanted to address with that.
Well, I guess what I'm wondering is, you're still supporting the artist if you're doing a paid thing. And I don't know what the exact amount is. Here, one of the fantastic people that's been on macOS Ken Day 6 is founder of Living Color, Vernon Reed. He and I have communicated off and on for several years, kind of a pal, I guess. But I asked him one time because I wanted to have him on. I wanted to have somebody because we can all sit around and talk about it. I wanted to have a musician on, somebody who has, started up and probably vinyl, certainly cassettes cassettes, vinyl, and CDs were probably all huge when Living Color started. And of course, then we moved to a almost strictly CD world, and now we're in a mostly streaming world. And so I asked him one time, I was like, which do you prefer? If I'm trying to support you, which do you want? And his answer is, man, I want people to hear my music. Now, what I don't know is, okay, so 1983, Business as Usual comes out by Men at Work, right? Or Cargo, I can't remember which one, but one of them came out in 1983. And so, throw down your money. And maybe that's one of the, even when we made the transition to CDs, okay, so 1989, let's say I rebought that, and now I've got this copy forever. That means I gave Men at Work $15 25 years ago, 27 years ago. If I listen to them on Apple Music, they're getting money, right? And they're not getting as much money as that time that I bought the CD, but I bought the CD almost 3 decades ago now. I would have to guess that the number of times that I've listened to, and this will give you a little bit of an idea of how I write my show, I latch onto a piece of media and it becomes the background. For a long time, it was the Godfather trilogy. Nice. One of the Godfather movies was on in the background while I was walking macOS Ken. The 2.5 years to 3 years, with the exception of the past couple of months, it's been 4 albums by 07. And I start them, and I might not get through all 4 albums, but that's what's playing when I'm writing my show. And I got to figure they've gotten at least as much money off me now playing them 5 nights a week for 2.5 years as they would have gotten from me buying one of their CDs 5 years ago. There's still money here. And I get annoyed. The thing that drives me crazy about all the different ideas that people have about the streaming music is when people get upset about the there is no free Spotify. There's an ad-supported tier or there's a paid tier. There's no free Spotify because I'm either giving you $10 or I'm giving you time listening to some Clearasil ad in the middle of it. There's no free version there. And I know people get upset and they say, well, they're devaluing the music. And I think you kind of then have to ask me, well, who's devaluing the music exactly? We grew up to say that there's no money in advertising in this whole thing. Then you have to ask how it is that Clear Channel manages to scrape by every year. This, it kind of gets to me. So, yes, I understand what you're saying about supporting the artist, but at some point, I'm still supporting the artist. I'm paying Apple $10 a month. That does not mean that, Billy Corgan's not getting paid anymore. He's not getting paid in the same way, but bet that I wasn't going to buy 1979 5 times, but he's getting paid every time I listen to it on anything that I listen to as far as the streaming service goes.
Yeah, but didn't he got wouldn't he have gotten paid when you bought the album? And now, unless you are, and I think I just heard you say you're not, that you aren't listening to that CD that you bought, you're streaming it off of iTunes, so, which you're paying for. So, or excuse me, Apple Music. Sorry. So therefore, he's being paid twice. He got paid then.
Being paid twice. That's true. Yes, but I mean, I have a hard time with the idea that somebody's not getting paid because I'm streaming it.
But it isn't. I will say, though, it isn't much. I just went and looked this up because one of the bands that I really enjoy is Cracker, who is sort of an evolution of the band Camper Van Beethoven from back in the day. For people who remember Take the Skinheads Bowling, that was their sort of novelty hit song.
No, you're leaving out Pictures of Matchstick Men. Come on. That's their hit, right?
Well, Low is the hit, but that wasn't Camper Van Beethoven.
That's Camper Van Beethoven. Right. Yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
So I don't want to turn this into the stuff that we listen to show, but I did want to point this out because I thought this was a very interesting thing. Pandora, which ships on like toasters now or something, like anything that you buy that can get Wi-Fi, like has Pandora as an app that you can deploy upon it. And David Lowery posted a statement a couple of years ago that was a quarterly statement from Pandora to him as a songwriter. He got $16.89 from Pandora for a quarter for the number of times that they played the song Low by Cracker in the quarter. And the number of plays was 1,159,000 plays, and he got $16.89 for it.
Wow.
Which is less than he makes if it's the multicolor long sleeve t-shirt. If I go buy that at a show, he gets more money from me for the t-shirt than he does if I go play this 1,000,000 times myself on Pandora. I don't know what the other scaling looks like, but I know that Pandora is like one of the most prevalent because, like I said, it ships on everything. So lots of people have Pandora and lots of people use it because you can listen to it on the ad-supported model without any cash out of your wallet. So what this tells me is that if I ever get the opportunity to walk up to a member of Duran Duran and hand them $20, given that I bought all their stuff on cassette, I bought some of the vinyl, I bought everything again on CD, and I've even bought a couple of the compilations in iTunes just to make sure that I had them on my phone whenever I felt like it. If I hand them $20, that's more money than they've made on me in all my years of fandom.
Okay, Jeff, you have anything? Because I want to move us on from this. I don't want this to become a support the band discussion because there are other issues.
Well, okay. On the support the band thing, I am now rethinking how I listen to some of my music. Because my go-to album right now, when I really need to focus and crunch out some articles, is Underworld 1992 to 2002. And I've ripped it, so it's in my iTunes library, and I will play the crap out of that. But Ken, now I'm thinking what I should be doing, so that they're at least getting a little something more, is just play it through Apple Music because it's available there too, and call it good because I've got plenty of bandwidth. It's not a big deal to stream that. But I think this shows part of the underlying problem with the system as it is right now. It's not supporting the artists that are creating the content in a meaningful way.
Right.
And that is a separate that's a whole separate discussion.
That's a whole separate podcast.
Yeah. I think there is a legitimate concern there if you start slicing this from the standpoint of supporting the artist. And yeah. Let's see if we can move on from that because I would love to sit and explore that for an hour, but don't think we have the time for that this show. So I heard everybody kind of steer away from the lossless discussion that apparently the quality you're getting from streaming is good enough. Is that a fair statement for all of you?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Because of where I generally stream. So I'm streaming music on my phone. I'm streaming on my phone speakers, not from my phone to anything nicer. I stream it from my phone through the phone speaker, or I will stream it to the stock speakers in my car, which is a 2000 Mazda Protege. So they are not by any means exceptional audio transmission devices. So I will broadcast through those speakers, or like on my laptop or through like a little Bluetooth speaker in the kitchen or something. So I'm not doing anything like I mentioned the B&Ws in the other room. I don't generally stream to those. I'm doing something local. Like all of our stuff is ripped at super high quality. So anything that I have on the NAS in the closet that I'm streaming from the NAS out through the receiver to the speakers in the other room, that's the kind of thing that that I want to make sure is super high quality. But for most of the stuff that I do any sort of streaming for, it's not on speakers where I'm going to notice any kind of difference.
Okay. So I want to go back to something Ken said, and he was using Max Headroom as an example, but I think that the media industries set a dangerous precedent here because things come and go from Netflix. And I start to worry because there have been some artists that have rejected the streaming media thing. And then we've seen some of these jokers say, this is going to be, exclusive to this service or that service. And the services are benefiting from those kind of things, not the artists and not the listeners. And I have a real concern, and this is why, I would consider continuing to buy CDs and ripping them. Because if I really want that music, then and this leaves the support the band way in the dust. Okay, I recognize that, but I want those albums, and I get really concerned when I go to Spotify or Apple Music and look for an album and it's not there, or there's a different mix. There's a remastering but not the original. They're not there, and when are the contracts going to round, and when all of a sudden are my favorite artists suddenly not going to be on the service that I've invested in paying for, but I've also invested time in creating my playlists or taking care of my collection. And Ken, your Max Headroom example was exactly it. It's one of the reasons that I think a lot of us, depending on your age, or depending on your passion for the music or the movie, are still a little bit hesitant on the streaming services.
Oh, I got totally burned on one of my favorite CDs. I, like an idiot, kept 10 or 12 of my favorite CDs in this one little CD carrier, and I have no idea what happened to it. One of the albums was Aurora Borealis by Letters to Cleo, which I bought at one of their shows in Boston before anybody.
That's a good album.
Yeah, it's great. It's a great album. And unfortunately, when they hit Melrose Place, they got an album. They got a deal, and so my little independent CD just got taken over by some label, which is fine, except they re-recorded a couple of tracks, and then when I went over to iTunes in the cloud or whatever, and it did iTunes Match, it's like, oh, he's got Aurora Borealis. Here are the Aurora Borealis files. But they're
the wrong ones.
But it's not your album, yeah.
But they're the wrong ones, exactly. And my album is gone. I may have it on a backup someplace. I don't know. I actually need to go digging for that someday. But yeah. So I mean, yes, you can get burned by that. But then I think of a song. I'm out walking my dog. A song hits my head. 3 seconds later, 5 maybe, I'm listening to that song because I told Siri to play it. And I've never bought it to spell the name of the artist, but I can tell it. As long as I can say it out loud, they can go find it for me and start playing it for me. Although it's weird what it will turn up with. Like I did actually buy Black Star by David Bowie, and the other day I wanted to hear the song Black Star by David Bowie, and so for some reason it played some live version I'd never heard and don't know. And so I actually had to go into my phone and type it in like a caveman.
To carry that example, I was enjoying the curated Prince playlists on Spotify, and a few days after he passed, all those lists disappeared. His record label or his representatives or whoever it was, the Prince camp, whatever that entails, yanked everything except for one song that was a Spotify exclusive that I'm assuming they just couldn't undo the rights to or something. And so the beautiful playlist that was like this chronology of like Prince and music that he had recorded throughout the years and some cool collaborations he'd done with other people, all of it was gone. Like I was listening to it the night before. I came in the next morning and I opened up Spotify and it played that song. And I was like, yeah, I heard this last night right before I quit playing music, so I'm going to skip it. And when I hit skip, it just played the same song again. So I went and looked at Spotify, and it was this one thing. And I went looking for the playlist, and it said by the request of his representatives that all of these tracks have been removed. So, and
that's what gets me, Kelly, right there. I don't know who to. I mean, I am not a Prince fan of any description, but that concept that it could happen to an artist that I care about really ticks me off, because I'm kind of betting now on streaming music, but I don't know who to be mad at. I don't know if I should be mad at the streaming companies. I don't know if I should be mad at the artist. I don't know if I should be mad at the record company, or in your example, Prince's camp. So
right. Like, I think if you ask a lot of artists themselves, you're going to get an answer like Ken's buddy Vernon Reid, who says, I just want people to hear it. I don't care how. And for me, like when we, I know, Chuck, I think the last time I was here, we talked about discovery. Like, how do you find out about music from other people? How do you find out about the music that you like? And when I go find that, I will go try to find what I think is what it seems like is the most direct way to support that person. So if I really dig the music, Chuck, that you're putting out, and I find out that you're coming to town, I'm totally going to buy a ticket to your show, maybe even before I buy the CD, because I know the ticket to your show is going to go, far more of that cut goes to you if you're just an indie artist than if I go buy the record on iTunes. I know a minimum of 30% of that's not going to you. And then I don't know who's distributing for you. Like if you're through CD Baby, they take a piece. If you go to Amazon, Amazon takes half, whatever. So I want to make sure that I'm supporting you the best way that I can. And I think there's a lot of that probably happens at record labels and record executives. And the thing that fascinates me about this is that the amount of consolidation we've seen in the music and the movie industry means that all of the big music companies are generally part of a larger corporation that has big movie companies, and all the movie companies are freaking out about this, and all the music companies are trying to do mostly are selling things on iTunes and figuring out that if you get 99 cents from somebody, that's 99 cents more than zero that you get if somebody steals it. And I would think that some of these lessons would have propagated out to like movie services and things, and so far that just doesn't seem to be happening. But I think for most people who are trying to get stuff out into the world, what they really want is the exposure. So I feel like there's probably other meetings that are happening that are making some of this stuff difficult for people like us who are willing to pay in order to get their hands on the stuff that they have.
So, Kelly, you brought up an interesting word. Does anybody feel like that this can encourage a backlash headed back toward music piracy? Wow.
There were articles that said that there were articles. Go ahead.
Nope. Ken, whatever you're going to say is probably more intelligent. So roll.
No. No, there was. Oh God, no. Who was it? See, I can't even tell you who it's about now. It was Kanye, right? When Kanye put his album exclusively on Tidal, there was some article that said that had he not made it exclusive to Tidal, it would have been the #1 album in the country or in the world. Because people went out and pirated it at that. Yeah, people that went out and pirated it at that rate. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I mean, there's a chance of piracy, but you have to be Kanye for that to happen. I mean,
well,
Radiohead has decided to pull its stuff. What? Mm-hmm. To make that kind of noise? I would think you would have to be somebody Kanye's size, yes. Or I would be interested actually to find out what the piracy rates have been for Drake's album, because he sold 1 million copies on Apple Music in 5 days. Now, apparently Kanye didn't sell 1 million on Tidal, but I guess he wasn't actually selling. He was only streaming.
It was only streaming. You couldn't buy it.
Right.
Except you could buy it through a site, I think, but you weren't going to be able to. That was never going to generate that much in sales, was it?
But
sorry, what was your?
Well, I guess I was going to ride on yours, Ken, and say, what about Prince?
Prince removed a lot of his stuff. I'm surprised to hear that there was that much stuff on Spotify to begin with, though, because Prince removed a lot of his stuff from Apple Music long before he died. I mean, Prince removed his stuff from Apple Music. It was not Prince's people. Well, maybe it was Prince's people, but I mean, he was still around. He could have.
It was a super exception. Yeah, I mean, he's Prince, so.
Yeah, well, and Prince. Yeah, he's the exception because he owned his art.
Right.
And he also decided Tidal was the thing.
And it is entirely possible that in a lot of cases, Prince was the one who made the decision, because Prince is in a position to make that decision. Not a lot of artists are. More artists are now because of him, but for a lot of folks that may not necessarily be the case. Men at Work, like I don't know that Men at Work has any say in where their music ends up, since you brought them up earlier. I don't know if it's up to them if they're on Apple Music or not. Colin Hay may have no say so.
Radiohead is doing that now. The Tom York's apparently been in. What words can we say here and what can we not? He's been in a wee-weeing match with Spotify lately, and the latest Radiohead album is not available. Now, I don't know if that's like something that he's able to do because of the level where they're at now, but a bunch of other Radiohead stuff is still available on Spotify. In fact, Radiohead, it was interesting that they could actually point this out. Radiohead is the 199th most popular band on Spotify, like just by number of listeners. I think it's 4-point-something million a month. Streams is how many Radiohead gets across the board on Spotify. It's pretty significant. And so, I mean, it's interesting. I don't think the almost 200th most popular band on Spotify is going to cause any kind of groundswell. And the other thing is he's not taking his music off of any place else. It's just Spotify, which I think is funny. Right. So I guess Rhapsody, I guess Deezer, I guess, well, certainly Apple Music is available because it's right up there at the top. I mean, it's interesting to see like sort of the individual fights. I mean, David Lowery is another great example. He hates Pandora. He does. Pandora. I've never heard him talk as he's not a huge fan of streaming music, I don't think, but Pandora specifically, it's kind of interesting to see people's personal feelings about it.
A diplomatic way to state it would be that David Lowery hates Pandora with the white hot intensity of 1,000 suns.
That's diplomatic.
All right, so I did want to get to Pandora because Tim Westergren is back, running Pandora, and there have been hints that they may start offering their own service, their own streaming music service, or streaming music more like Spotify, where you can pick, because right now you can't pick.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
They bought Rdio for that, didn't they? They bought what was left over of Rdio for that.
I believe.
Mm-hmm. But they haven't really done anything yet.
Not yet. Now, Tim's been on the show a couple times, and I'm rooting for Pandora because I wanted to ask you some questions before this, but here we are. Because I have to tell you, of all Pandora, Apple Music, and Spotify, Pandora is the one I go to for discovery. Okay, and their secret sauce seems to be that I can seed a channel in Pandora with some of my favorite artists, more than one. And I get stuff that comes right out of left field. Not all of it I necessarily like, but a lot of things, I've bought a lot of music because of that. And that's something you can't do with Apple or with Spotify. They kind of make you seeded with just one thing. And okay, so I seeded with one thing and I get more of the same. And so I tell you right now, based on that, if Pandora could let me listen to what I want to, when I want to, I would drop Apple Music and Spotify in a heartbeat.
So let me ask you, Apple Music guys, a question. I used to have radio stations in iTunes, and they were curated, and I tailored them, and I loved them. I loved them. And they're gone now because I don't pay for Apple Music. Or it's because of the advent of Apple Music that these stations are gone. Are they still there? And if I paid $10 a month, could I have them back?
The stations that
are you talking about? No,
like when I build my own, I build the radio station, and I have like, here's the station that I want. I want this and this and this and this, but don't play these bands ever. And you used to have like that panel in iTunes where you could customize the radio station, and the hands down the best, I'm going to seed it and let it go, was from the latest iteration of those stations. It was so much better than Pandora, and I only had it for like 4 months or 6 months, and then they all disappeared when everybody's Apple Music subscription expired. I couldn't get access to them anymore, and it breaks my heart. And I would pay $10 a month to get those back. That's like the only edge that I thought Apple Music ever had over Pandora, because I like the Pandora discovery, Chuck, like you're talking about. But every once in a while, Pandora will get a wild hair and it will shoot off on some recommendation path, and I keep trying to bring it back and it keeps failing, and so I have to leave it alone for a while and then come back to it like a few days later or a week later and see if it's like behaving now. And I never had that problem with the ones that I was doing on Apple Music, on the iTunes radio stations in the olden days, and I don't know if those are still a thing now. And I don't pay, so I can't tell if they're an option.
Okay, so if you made them before the transition happened, they're still
Which
there.
I did.
So I have a Brian Eno, a Lisa Hannigan, a Pomplamoose, and a Habib Koité, different stations that started from those artists that I really curated, and they're fantastic, and I still have them, and they still totally work. Now, I can't make any changes to them now, but they're still there.
Okay.
So no more refining, but I've got them.
Would they still be there, though? She made them and she wasn't paid. And then if she starts paying now, would they?
I don't know.
Be there? Would they be recoverable or would they be gone? Yeah.
I don't know.
There's another thing, though, if you don't mind.
No.
There's another thing that I think is really huge as far as Apple Music goes, and that's the fact that I don't have to choose an app anymore. The thing that annoys me now about Apple Music is if I search for something and I'm an Apple Music subscriber, just quit showing me the thing where I have to pay for it. If I accidentally search in the iTunes store, sort of like it does like we have universal search with Siri TV, right? I want to watch this now. Instead of I could go to Netflix and see if it was there, and if it wasn't there, then I can go to some other service and see if it was there, and then I can go to iTunes and buy it, right? Mm-hmm. We have universal search now with Siri, so if I say, hey, I want to watch Meet John Doe, you can't buy Meet John Doe, it turns out, on iTunes, but it was available on Hulu. And so I asked my Siri remote one time, hey, I want to watch Meet John Doe, or can you show it to me? And it gave it to me for free. I didn't even have the option to buy it. If I'm subscribing to Apple Music and I go into iTunes and I search for something, just take me to the free one. If I accidentally search in the iTunes store, I mean, it's still sort of making me choose apps. It's making me choose a drop-down menu.
That's a good point.
There was a company, a startup in Tiny Town at the very last Macworld. They were called Cactus. And forgive me, I'm going to check my phone because I was very excited about it. Their whole thing was, I was a huge Spotify user at the time. Yeah, it was called Cactus. I assume they're still out there. What they were going to be able to do was they were getting an API. They were talking to the people at Spotify, and they were going to be able to basically fold in all of the music that you had on your phone with Spotify as well. So Cactus would be your one app for those things. This to me is what's great about Apple Music, is I don't have to think which thing am I in now. I mean, and that's, I guess, part of Apple's whole soup to nuts approach. The fact that that to me is the reason to pay the $10 a month, because I was paying $10 a month to Spotify anyway, but instead of having to be one or the other, now having it all in one place, I mean, that feels like, and I understand it's the height of lazy that my problem is that I don't want to move my phone from one
That's a first world problem of
to
first
another.
world problems, I think.
It's an
but
insanely
it's
first world
also
problem. I feel. Go ahead.
It also shows a lack of attention to the way we're using these services. It seems like a no-brainer for Apple to have set this up so that if you're searching for content that they can provide you and it's available on Apple Music and you're a subscriber, that should be the first option. It just starts playing you whatever it is.
Or pop up and
You'd
ask
think
you,
that.
did you want to stream this or did you want to buy this? Like, it should at least ask you.
But why would you
think so?
Like,
why
if
would
you're in
you-
the wrong place.
Yeah, but why would you buy it if you have access to the streaming? Unless you specifically...
Support the artist.
Well, yeah. Here we go again.
There are times where I buy an album that I can stream, and then I will continue to stream it. But I want to have the copy so that if at some point down the road, for whatever reason, I decide that I don't want to have an Apple Music subscription anymore, I still have that music on my hard drive. And for me, it's easier to buy it right now as opposed to try and remember 5 years from now, which albums did I really want to make sure that I held on to?
There's also just, I mean, this does not clear me legally by any stretch of the imagination on something like Day 6. Occasionally I'll play music that's copywritten, and I'll buy it because I feel like I ought to do something. And then I'll usually say, I bought this on iTunes, it's 99 cents, go get it. Then I did Bowie died. I bought Black Star. It was streaming. I was paying for it, but there was something of I wanted to push whatever button was going to put that over the top or whatever too. So, I mean, there are different reasons to do it, I suppose, but it is kind of crazy that it doesn't just default to that.
I mean, it's really interesting to listen to you all and to think about how I think about music versus how some of you think about music. From the supporting the artist standpoint, from the I want to own this because I want to own it. And I'm kind of surprised because I thought we were sort of over the I want to own it stage. For the most part, with some exceptions, Kelly's Autograph and Jeff's Discovery Method and that kind of thing. But I don't know that I feel obligated to own it for any reason other than the quality issue. That's my reason for owning.
Well, I never got into Apple Music because I never got into iTunes Match because I've been an Apple person long enough that I don't trust Apple to go scooping stuff out of my hard drive for me. It's that simple. That's the total reason that I never went iTunes Match. It's the total reason that I was never interested in Apple Music because everything's like, we're just going to suck it all off your hard drive for you, and then we'll just give you back the ones that you feel like, or, whatever kind of thing it was. And I'm like, yeah, I was an iTools person. There's no way on earth you're going to convince me that this is fixed on this kind of scale for this kind of music library, for the number of things that you're actually talking about having on my computer. There's just no way that that's going to be a thing for me. Thank you, but no. And then Jim Dalrymple comes out and goes, Apple Music ate half my hard drive, half my iTunes library. And, Apple had to send people to that guy's house for the iTunes bug that, slurped a bunch of music off his computer magically. And that's, for me, that's part of what it is I've done too much tech support. Whenever I see somebody's software or whatever, like I've been in the tech support business for longer than I'm emotionally prepared to admit. So whenever I see something like that, that way lies madness. I'm not going to do that. That's too much tech support for me to do for myself, let alone for people who call me up and ask me for tech support for free, like family members and friends. So I'm not doing it. I don't need that kind of hassle in my life. So I just never did. That's why I never went for Apple Music.
Ken?
I'll tell you what's funny to me about that, though. My co-host on iChart Radio, a guy named Mike LaPlante, he is a musician. He has, collected stuff over the years. He got hosed by the whole Apple Music switchover. And he actually, he said, I kind of feel freer now. That was it. That's all. I mean, he's like, I don't worry about it anymore. He's like, this used to be something that used to really, really stress me out, that used to really worry me. But then it happened. And so now I'm going out and finding other things. I'm finding other recordings. I'm finding other music where he used to be very, very much, like Gollum, like you were talking about earlier. Mine. This is yes, what this is. And so now now he sort of feels like he's been freed of that need to own, which is kind of funny. Your mileage may vary on that one. I mean, again, the only thing that bothers me is that one Letters to Cleo track, but that one Letters to Cleo track really does bother.
Is important. It's no less important than my entire record collection or whatever. Yeah.
Well, I'll be fine with the other 29,999,999 tracks available on iTunes. So I think.
But I also like liner notes, and it's again old school. Like as a person who started life as liner notes, I started with records. Like you could, open up that 12-inch square thing and read all the stuff inside. And from that to cassettes, not so much. Part of the reason I liked CDs was because you got a little bit bigger liner notes, a little bit more room for people to put in whatever it was they wanted to put in. And I dig that. I really like that. I mean, I still buy comic books, and most of the comic books I buy are paper comic books because I like to sit with the actual experience of paper. And maybe not everybody is that person, again, your mileage may vary, but that's the thing I'm really into. Like, who were the people on this? And like, if I buy a CD from a person who's local, do I know any of the people who played on it? Or maybe I do know somebody who played on it, and that's why I bought the CD in the first place. And I want to be able to point that out and hand that to somebody like, hey, Jeff, next time we're hanging out, you should listen to this record. I have this really great this friend who's in this awesome band. You should totally check out the PDX Broadsides. You really need to know about them. Here's their CD, and you can listen to it like immediately. And like the discovery piece of that for me is the thing that I really like about having a CD is I can just hand it to somebody and they can listen to it.
Oh, my brain explodes. Because you're paying for the music. I mean, I kind of am with you, Kelly. In fact, I've often wondered why more bands don't put the liner notes or the content, if you will, of the liner notes on their websites. Right. I don't get that, because
if it were more common, I would be happier to go digital, because I just like to read all that stuff. I'm that person.
But and I guess there are more of those still out there that love that stuff. Because I guess I still think those are interesting things, but I don't go back once if I buy an album of a CD, I might go through the liner notes once, but the odds of me going back very often are not very good, at least not with any frequency. So I'm surprised that that's a motivator. I think it's fascinating that it is, but for you,
well, I do it less now. But as a kid, for me, it was a way to draw connections, because I remember I read that somewhere. That's like the sticky part of my brain. So as a kid, like I would buy an album, a cassette or a record or a CD or whatever it was, and I would read through it and I would see the same name. I've seen that name somewhere. Where did I see that name? And I would go back through other records and go find, oh, well, the guy who's in this band used to be in that band, because I didn't have the internet. There was no internet for mere mortals in the olden days. And, we barely had cable TV. So that was like for me, that was research. Like, if I really like this record in my hand and everything that they do, involves like this particular guitar player, and then I find out, well, I've read that guitar player's name somewhere. Well, he was in this other band. Maybe I need to go buy more music by them. Or when this band comes out and everything that they do, all of their liner notes and everything is all like a tribute to Led Zeppelin. Like, maybe I need to go be listening to more Led Zeppelin and find out like where the stuff that I liked came from. And so that for me was the thing that, and like I said, I don't do as much of that as I used to, because I have a lot of that in my brain and in my phone. But in the olden days, that was how I was able to sort of build a musical taste and figure out what my library needed to be.
To be fair, everyone should listen to more Led Zeppelin.
This is the absolute truth.
Yeah. Guys, we're probably pushing to the edge. I don't know. I'm not sure we've reached any conclusions, but I'm not sure I really expected us to. I wanted to examine this because I feel like that the Apple Music thing has brought a lot of things home, and then I'm afraid to go here because we may go for another hour, but there's talk of Apple stopping selling digital downloads, of digital downloads becoming a thing of the past, and just everybody going to streaming. Maybe that brings us full circle back to my concern of how many services am I going to have to subscribe to make sure that I get what I want, or should I be ripping and burning and everything now? I don't know. Do you
well, okay, short version. Of course, music downloads is going away. It's a declining market, and eventually it won't be worth it for companies to continue doing that, and so it'll stop. But it's not tomorrow, and it's not next year. It's still a little ways off. Okay. And I'll be really sad when it does go away, because even though I'm totally cool with everything that I get through my Apple Music subscription, I still like owning some stuff.
But do you mean iTunes selling downloads is going away, or do you mean in general downloads are going away? Because I believe iTunes is going to pull the plug on it, and that it's going to be relentless, and they're just going to be like, sorry, not sorry, and that's going to be the way it's going to be. And you can quote me on that. Sorry, not sorry. But that just means that like you can buy them from Amazon instead, or mp3.com will make a raging comeback, or whatever, like I feel like there's always going to be an outlet. The selection and the quality from that outlet may vary, but that doesn't mean that it's not going to continue to be possible. Maybe in general it will go away, and iTunes will be the first to sort of sound that death knell, but I think it's going to always be something that's possible.
I'm not sure I buy it. I'll tell you honestly, I think, and this opens us up to like a much, much bigger thing. There are people who don't have a way to pay for a recurring service, but they'll, find a way to pay for an album every now and then. I love how obsessed with software as a service or hardware as a service or Apple as a service is the most recent one. There are people all across this country who don't have credit, who will throw down money on used equipment or who will throw down money maybe on new equipment, but they don't have a way to take a part of the thing that all of Wall Street suddenly thinks is going to be a thing. Yes, maybe one day a majority of your revenue does come from subscription services, but there are going to be lots of people who can't afford them. There are also going to be lots of people who just don't want the extra bill. And I think the same goes for music. I think there are going to be a lot of people who either can't or don't want to do the $10 a month or $12 a month or however much it ends up being. But they still want to have access to music. It's not like it costs anything. I mean, we're putting out vinyl still. There are still people who want to buy vinyl. I mean, if there are still enough people to make vinyl worth doing, it's got to be worth doing.
They all live here.
We all have, and the people like 10 years in, a lot of them. Although I actually do know where there's one record store here in Buffalo.
But Ken,
a lot of people have to die. A lot of people have to die before we stop selling MP3s, I think.
God.
Like people like 10 years younger than me, I think it would have to be.
God, I hope not too many people in this panel. But Ken, does that take us back to, I mean, some of this does bring us full circle, back to the Spotify model where you're playing it and you're supporting the artist, you're paying for your music through the ads.
I hate the ads. I think one of the smartest things Spotify did was I don't understand how people stay on the free model of Spotify, unless it's changed a lot since I was on the free model. I think I was on the free model for about a week, maybe a week and a half, because once it got to every second or third song was the ad for Spotify, I couldn't give them my money fast enough because I did want to have. Okay.
That's actually when I stopped listening to Pandora.
Really?
Yeah.
See, Pandora.
Like, okay, I'm done.
I'm more like Kelly on the whole Pandora thing, but I like radio when radio has a personality. When radio no longer has a personality, then I don't like radio. And so
that's why I gave up radio. It all went auto here in Portland, and I don't miss it.
Yeah,
I listen to it and I go, this is terrible.
I mean, Jack is an interesting format. Jack or Max are both interesting formats because they're basically 80s and 90s songs, and it seems random, and yet somehow it all seems to work. But after a while, I do either want to hear somebody talk or I want to hear what I want to hear. And this was always the problem I had with Pandora. If I want to hear Morrissey, I want to hear Morrissey. I don't want to hear something that Tim Westergren thinks sounds like Morrissey. And I only mention him because I also interviewed him. I think that was probably on Day 6 a million years ago. He's a nice guy. I say his name because he's the name I know. I mean, and things would turn up and I'm like, this is not ringing that bell at all. It's not getting that taste. It just makes no sense to me why this is here. And so then I would go back to music that I owned, or I would go to a streaming service that I paid for that would let me hear Morrissey. Darn it.
My Pandora problem channel is the soundtrack channel. Because I added all these specific soundtrack albums. I added all these specific artists, like composers, like it's got John Williams and it's got Michael Giacchino and it's got all these like composers, and it's got specific albums like the Star Wars soundtrack and the Harry Potter soundtrack and the Pirates of the Caribbean soundtrack and on and on and on. But I made the mistake of adding the Tron Legacy soundtrack. And so every so often, all of a sudden it goes off into ambient techno for like 2 hours and I can't make it stop. And then I'm out of skips and then I don't know what to do. And then I have to go change to something else. And I'm like, so I emailed them and I said, how do I take this album out and get it out? Because like all the other stuff I've done to curate this channel and make it a well-recommended channel so that for the most part it's doing what I want. I just need to take out this thing that I think is what's screwing up the algorithm. How do I undo that? And they're like, you make a new channel. I'm like,
yeah, but Kelly, you sound, see, I'm somewhere between you and Ken when it comes to music. Most of the time I want to listen to what I want to listen to, but there are times that if I got to clean the basement or do something in the yard or whatever, that I really don't have a specific desire to listen to anything. I'll throw on Pandora, or if I just want to see what else is out there, I'll throw on Pandora, and it's going to play me a bunch of stuff I like, but it's also going to throw something different in the mix. And so that's my discovery time. And I really like that. So I'm either well, I'm still kind of an album guy or a playlist guy that I've created, and that gets into a whole nother discussion because I have yet to find a curated playlist that I didn't curate that I like, or I'm out there to do the discovery stuff. And
I would like to hear your curated playlists, and I don't know how to do that.
Kelly.
Yeah, I'm interested in your curated playlist now too.
Let me tell you, the only two artists that any of you have mentioned that I listen to are Zeppelin and Bowie. Other than that, I wouldn't pay you a nickel for any of your music. Sorry, but that's another discussion.
I listen to a lot of stuff, Chuck. I just didn't name names on anything else. So yeah, when we're done recording, I would really like to get my hands on a playlist or two of yours that you have curated because I think it would be fascinating.
Okay,
I have a feeling all three of us.
I can almost guarantee that Chuck would hate almost all of my music.
Well,
I'm willing to bet.
Probably not like Ken. I'm not sure I hate anything. Well, yeah, there's some stuff out there.
Okay.
So yeah. That's the next version of this show. Closing comments and anything that we need to touch on before we wrap it up. Okay, I'll take not. In reverse order, where can folks find you, Ken?
MacOSCan.com. I'm also MacOSCan on Twitter, and the Star Trek show. I think I meant podcast.com. We're watching Star Trek, and you should listen to us watch Star Trek.
And yes, you should, because it's a lot of fun. You and John Champion do a great job.
Thanks.
Kelly?
You can find me on Twitter as Verso. You can also find me volunteering for App Camp for Girls in various capacities, occasionally making trouble for Jeff on the Mac Observer Daily Observations podcast. And you can hear me on the After Show with Mike and Kelly at aftershowpodcast.com. That's a show I do with Mike Rose, formerly of Tua. And we talk mostly about tech, but we occasionally derail pretty quickly into other random things. And sometimes you can find me guesting on the British Tech Network.
Terrific. Mr. Gamet.
All right, you can find me over at macobserver.com along with a bunch of other awesome people, which does include Kelly. And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram. I'm Jay Gamet, both places. You can find me on gobs of podcasts, including Mac Observer's Daily Observations. And then check out freshbrewedtales.com because I watch people do stupid things in coffee shops and then write about it.
Yeah, I very, very seldom run into those people. Once in a while, when I do, I think of you, Jeff.
I appreciate that.
Guys, thank you so much for being here. This has been really interesting. Again, I'm not sure we solved anything, but hopefully we made some people think about supporting bands, why they're buying what they're buying, and how they can keep listening to what they're listening to. Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is the MacJury on MacVoices. We'll be back with more soon. Hopefully with this panel again to maybe delve deeper into this, if it's possible to go deeper. Thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for links, show notes, to subscribe, to connect with Chuck on Twitter, Google+, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and the MacVoices blog. Subscribe to our weekly newsletter, the MacVoices Dispatch, to stay up to date on all the latest MacVoices news from our front page or at macvoices.com/newsletter. Do more with your Apple tech by subscribing to the free MacVoices magazine on Flipboard by visiting macvoices.com/magazine. Advertising and sponsorships handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by Cashfly at cashfly.com. You guys are all nuts.
Nuts?
Nuts.